Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We are back with another Neurodiversity Stories, and I'm your host. My name is Darren Clark. So, who am I, and why do I put on these neurodiversity stories? So, I'm a global neurodiversity consultant, and I work with organizations across the globe to make their workplace more awareness around neurodiversity. You can find out more details in all of the blurbs of what I do. But more importantly, why do I do neurodiversity stories? And it's because for you, it's to hear your stories all around neurodiversity, to spread more awareness, more of a message. And I absolutely love stories, and I absolutely love meeting people and hearing their stories. And today we have another incredible guest. We have Becca Francis, who I know is incredibly busy. So I'm absolutely delighted that I've been able to get her to come along to Neurodiversity Stories and spend some time with us and telling us all about her story around her ADHD, her diagnosis, and kind of the amazing work that she's doing as well. Other thing, guys, as well, we can't do this without your support. So I want to say a massive, massive thank you to everyone that has been a previous guest on Neurodiversity Stories, or my current guest today, and all the people that watch and comment. We get comments from across the globe, from Kenya, Argentina, Poland, America, and obviously the UK as well. So please do let us know who you are and where you're tuning in from, because it kind of helps. And again, we've had some amazing people connecting with people just in the comments below. They've then connected over to on LinkedIn as well. And that's how connections are made. I also want to say a massive thank you to our brand new sponsors, Touch, Type, Read and Spell. And guys, I want to share with you the amazing work that they're doing with their organization and helping with dyslexia. And please check this out.
I always knew I had problems with reading and spelling, but I never got the support I needed at school. Back then, it wasn't as popular to talk about learning difficulties. You figure you'll get back to it someday, but then there's the worry of what others will say. Imagine a grown woman who can't even read out loud. That was before I heard about Touch, Type, Read and Spell, and I realized I'm not the only one. There was John, like me. He always struggled along, but no one ever explained why. And Brad, who has severe dyslexia that affected his schooling and choice of career. And Amanda, who only realized she had dyslexia when her son was diagnosed. So I decided to give it a try. I went to the website and signed up. And just like that, I started to get the hang of it. I never thought I could be good at something that involved letters. It's amazing. I make fewer mistakes when I type emails. And if I get stuck writing by hand, I just think where my fingers would go. Thanks to TTRS, I am faster on the computer. Reading feels easier. And every day, my confidence grows. I guess it goes to show you, it doesn't matter how old you are. It's never too late to start learning. Make a change today with Touch, Type, Read and Spell.
Hey guys, Touch, Type, Read and Spell. Thank you so much for your support and supporting Neurodiversity Stories. So guys, I want to get on to the main part today and welcome our incredible guest, Becca Francis. As I mentioned before, she's going to be talking around her ADHD journey, the amazing work that she's doing, the content that she's creating, and the awareness that she's doing as well. So guys, without further ado, I'd like you to give a warm welcome to Becca. Becca, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
Massive welcome to Neurodiversity Stories. Thank you so much for giving up your precious time to speak to us today. Becca, I've been a massive fan of following the content that you've been putting out, and I know that you are a TikTok advocate as well. Is that correct? Do you mind me saying that?
No, at 35, I'm not sure it's my proudest achievement, but
No. I think it's absolutely incredible, and do you know what? It gets the message across in such a short, kind of snappy way of doing that. So that's fantastic. But Becca, more importantly, it'd be amazing if you could just let the people know a little bit about you and kind of maybe a little bit about what you do and kind of a little bit your story. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, cool. So I'm Becca. I'm 35 and I've got 2 children. So mum of 2, very busy. I was diagnosed with ADHD formally last year at the age of 34. And I probably knew for about 4 years or felt that I'd got ADHD. And I can talk to you about kind of where that came from. Day to day, I work as an Agile coach. So that is in kind of projects and programs. It kind of works for people that don't know what that is. And I help implement and help work with the teams on implementing different and new ways of working and helping them to become more agile, collaborate and focus on the customer. So
absolutely, well, that's that's a fantastic synopsis of what you do, and if we can kind of touch on a few of the the subjects you've mentioned. So if we go into kind of the diagnosis element of this, so you were very kind of late diagnosed with ADHD. In the grand scheme of things, I mean, some people say kind of 10 and 11 or 12 is quite late diagnosis, but kind of in the 30s. That's, I was diagnosed at 36, so it's kind of a similar kind of age. What was that like, Becca?
I think so I went on a bit of an emotional roller coaster when I received my diagnosis. Although I kind of said I felt I knew I had ADHD, and that came as part of my son being diagnosed with ADHD for quite a few years. There was always that question of, well, what if I haven't, or what if I have, does it make any difference? And so when I did go through my diagnosis process, actually the doctor at the time sort of said to me, I'm amazed you've got so far in life and done, really well in your jobs and things, and it not causing, a huge problem. And when I got diagnosed, I did go through a bit of a, what if I had known this when I was younger? Actually, it made so much sense with kind of my relationships, with my schooling. And a lot of people have said to me, and I was one of these people a few years ago, well, what's a label? It's just another label, and, you should embrace who you are. And I fully do. However, having that diagnosis has really helped me to understand myself and also really work with my strengths and work in a better way with my weaknesses and getting people to support me with that as well.
Absolutely, and I guess we do go on this kind of emotional roller coaster, because you're absolutely right. It is that kind of what if, what if I would have known in an early age? Would I be, if I've had support, the knowledge, and it is, isn't it? Hindsight is such an amazing thing. So was there kind of always, because I was diagnosed with dyslexia and ADHD at the age of 36, so I kind of understand the late diagnosis part and kind of the journey that I went on, but I completely understand that every single journey is separate, because the years leading up to that would have been different from you than it would for me. Were there kind of, how did you know then that there may have been some form of ADHD or something a little bit, I don't tend to use the word different, but something that maybe, well, again, yeah, we're all kind of different, aren't we? So was there any kind of inklings in there, Becca?
Probably not. Growing up, and I grew up in a family that didn't believe in ADHD, and even when my son was diagnosed with it, didn't believe in ADHD. And so growing up, I think no. There was always a recognition I was different. I always had a strong sense of justice. I would be the one who would challenge things in class. I always had a lot of, like, with my emotions, I'd always literally feel some of my emotions, and I noticed that wasn't common. A lot of people didn't have that. So and kind of growing up, I was always on the go. I was always active in lots of different sports. Typical what they'd say was a tomboy, but I wasn't really a tomboy either. And so growing up, I don't think it was, I had to work really, really hard, and I got through my GCSEs. I did pass my GCSEs, but that was when I look at in comparison to a lot of my friends, it was extremely hard work for me to get there. So kind of growing up, I think I always just knew I was different. There was something there. I knew with my emotions there was something different. But it was through my son's diagnosis that it really, I worked with a counsellor who was a specialist in ADHD for children. And it was actually her that, through my son's diagnosis, when we were doing some counselling with him, said, Becca, have you looked at the traits of ADHD in women? And I was like, no, why are you telling me this? And she said, I quite often work with parents first rather than children. She said, do you know that ADHD is hereditary? And what I realised was she was trying to tell me I'd definitely got ADHD.
In the nicest possible way. There's something,
Yeah.
But that's incredible. But because they do, the more I kind of looked into my own dyslexia, the more I can kind of see where it stems from, in the sense of how it affects, different members of my family. I remember, growing up and, thinking my auntie, who I'm not too sure whether she's had the diagnosis with dyslexia, but the traits, everything that she does, I can, relate to in that sense. But I guess we're talking different generations maybe, and diagnosis now is probably a little bit more common now than it was maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago. But it's interesting, isn't it, when you start going back through the kind of the family tree and you start seeing those traits. So it was it was your child's kind of a diagnosis, and then it was okay. So then you got tested, and then it was a bit of a shock for you. Do you say, Becca? Or
I don't think it was a shock for me. I had probably 3 years of, and I had a really close friend at work who helped me a lot as well, of recognising that actually I was ADHD, but I didn't have a formal diagnosis. And they helped in terms of just pointing out some of the things that I would do, some of the ways I'd act. And it was kind of just helping me, I think, on that journey to, being, okay. But, it was always there. That when I decided last year to go through diagnosis, it was so I could kind of cross it off in my mind. It wasn't to have a label or anything like that. It was to help me kind of, I suppose, continue on that journey. It was to be honest, if it hadn't have been when I was going through my son's diagnosis, if it hadn't have been for that counsellor kind of talking to me, I do wonder if I hadn't picked up George's diagnosis, whether I would have picked up mine or just continued with some things, wondering, why I do things in a certain way.
Absolutely. And it's been, they say knowledge is power in that sense. So you've kind of been on, you mentioned before, Becca, that you went on kind of a bit of a self-discovery journey, in the sense of, thinking kind of the what if. So what's that kind of been like since the diagnosis? Because I know you're doing incredible work in the content that you're creating, the awareness that you're doing, which is helping so many people. And so what's that kind of that journey looking like now, Becca, if you don't mind me?
I actually feel it's really empowered me. It's really helped me apply a kind of a lens to myself. It's not a label, it's a lens of how I and how others can see me as well. So it helps me to not only understand myself, but help other people that work with me, or that, my friends understand me. Like, one of the things that really annoys, or used to annoy, probably still does, some of my friends, is, my lack of, like, if I read a text message, if I do not reply in that moment, well, you're lucky if you get a reply the same day. It might be a week later. Or
At least you do reply, so.
Yeah, well, sometimes, things like being late, as much as I try to be on time for things, especially more in my social life, like, that's routinely a challenge for me. So, now understanding that, and also a massive thing, like I say, is people aren't really aware of the emotional side of ADHD. Now I understand that I can use that and channel that in the right way. And things like the most recent job that I've started, I felt really confident in my interview, telling them that I got ADHD, because I do believe it brings a lot of strengths with it as well, which I'm proud of.
That's incredible, and it's really refreshing to hear, Becca. If I'm honest, I've shared content around I think one of the posts I put out was do we tell people about our neurodiversity? Do we? I think it was a dyslexia post. Thinking about it, it was it was a person filling out an application form, and I mentioned, would you disclose that you have dyslexia in the interview? And it was, again, it was a mixed results, and I think it's because I've spoken to people where they've mentioned it at the interview, and then I've also had conversations with people that have got through the interview, got the position, then mentioned it, and then they kind of went on this bit of a journey where they felt, am I misleading the company if I didn't mention it in this? What does that look like? So the thoughts that go through your mind it's like a bit of torture, isn't it? That you're kind of second guessing what they could possibly think. So it's really refreshing to hear. How was that received? Because obviously you were quite confident when you mentioned it to them, and then it was received, quite well.
Well, I guess so, because I got the job.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm lucky. So where I work, really fortunate. They do have like a neurodiversity group and things like that.
Oh, amazing.
Which is really good. And without it sounding, overconfident or arrogant, actually I do recognise, yes, there are a lot of challenges ADHD brings, and it isn't just forgetting things on the side. It isn't just being a little bit late. There are other challenges, but I wouldn't want to work for a company that doesn't recognise that I'm different, and the great skills that those differences can bring. So I think, but there is a lot of stigma still out there attached to it, and that's why I suppose I'm confident and comfortable in kind of sharing about ADHD, is because I want to try and break down some of that, and share it's not just a naughty boy syndrome, and it's actually there's lots of good stuff that ADHD people have and bring.
You're absolutely right, Becca, and you is when you mentioned that naughty boy syndrome, I noticed when you shared the post that, and I've seen you sharing content around that before, and that's a really strong comment in I feel, and it's really effective, because you're absolutely right, because we do have this stigma attached to ADHD, where we do think that if someone is disruptive, or in the sense of which, then naturally that the child's been misbehaving, or they're doing this element. But really, if you actually were able to delve into it, the frustrations that child may be, and adults again, that may be dealing with, isn't just a case of immediately think that person's being naughty.
Mm-hmm. And I think we, as a society, we kind of create that. So right from when a child enters this world, we try and put them in a box. They need to develop by a certain age, they need to behave in a certain way, they need to be at certain milestones. And, the school, and I think we probably have seen this over the years where we're saying, a lot more children are diagnosed with ADHD now. Years ago, we did have more hands-on activities for children at school, and we don't really have that now. There's a real push for children to go down an academic kind of pathway. And actually, if you were to embrace that child as a child for themselves, which would be the ultimate to get to for diversity and for neurodiversity, then I think, how we behave and as a society, right from those children as they're born, could look so different for so many neurodiverse and just diversity generally.
Absolutely. And because if we take the kind of the last sort of year and a half, with this this pandemic, I'm not sure if it's a year and a half, 2 years, I'm not too sure now. It's been and we far too long, but hopefully, fingers crossed, there's it's on the horizon. But I can't stop to kind of think, I've worked largely with the educational system for many years, and hearing parents talking about having to kind of homeschool and having the effect on the child, and that's without even kind of thinking about neurodiversity in the sense of ADHD in those types of. I can imagine that would be really, especially if someone's not being diagnosed, I guess, with ADHD, and then as a parent, and then you're homeschooling. I can imagine it can be a whole stressful period for for everyone involved, really. And if you've heard any stories of that, of people.
I do. So obviously through my journey with my son, I actually did a lot of work with the local community centre, and we started up a special needs group to support parents through the journey. And through that, I've had quite a few friends I've helped out, and a lady I used to work with who's during the pandemic had to homeschool her daughter, who's on a pathway now for diagnosis for ASD. And yeah, the support, if you don't have that diagnosis, a lot of schools don't really recognise that, without a valid diagnosis, or it makes it even harder. So then for parents at home trying to homeschool, and probably like with me, with my son George, I always knew there was something different about him. And he needed different approaches and different styles of learning, things like that. But without having a formal diagnosis, it was a real struggle to be able to do that, or help him in those ways.
Absolutely, and I can imagine, when we talk about the diagnosis, it's not a quick thing, is it? It's a very long process. It's very much and to get it first of all, and then to go through the process, and then once you've got the diagnosis, the journey then it almost kind of just continues or starts again. And I'm sure that's something that you experience a lot, Becca.
Yeah, so especially in children, I mean, the systems, the processes we've got in place they're awful, to be honest with you. And I think they push parents to a point where they do experience breakdown, severe stress, and just being able to, access the funding that's needed, or being able to put children in a school, for children to attend a setting where they can learn in a way that that suits their needs, is a real challenge. And I've seen so many families break down through the system and the failures in the system, unfortunately. But yeah, for my son, it was about 4 years that it took to get a diagnosis, and in the end, I saved really, really hard as a single mum, and paid privately for his ADHD diagnosis.
Wow, 4 years, Becca. That's commendable. And you're absolutely right. It's that sheer strength, isn't it, to just keep going and going and going. And I know, the children are the most important things in the world, and I completely understand, that gives you strength alone. But take my hat off to you to keep going and fighting that process, because it will, ultimately it will help. But like you said before, once you've got a diagnosis, if you found that the support is helped, massively within this, I mean, or is it still a little bit of unknown?
Yeah, so both for me and my son, what you'll find is when you get diagnosed, you get a bit of paper telling you that you've got ADHD, and so for mine was like really far up the spectrum as well. So it tells you that you've got ADHD, and then you kind of, you go out the doctor's door, and that's it. And you might have some medication, or they might talk to you about medication, but you're just left then to find out what the hell this thing is, really. Because even if you suspected it, I mean, I did a lot of research with my son, for my son, so I knew a lot about it. But when I started exploring it in women, and girls, it presents in very different ways. And obviously you've got things like women's cycles and the hormones that come in that way that I hadn't explored. So yeah, you just kind of go out of the doctor's door with this piece of paper telling you that you're a bit different, you've got a label now, but you don't have any support. There's no wraparound care, and especially for children, I think that's a huge area that we miss. And we do put a lot of ownership on the schools, which have limited SENCO resources, to pick that child up and to help. And for some parents, I would say I'm very interested in it. I've took a lot of time to explore it. For some parents, they wouldn't even know where to turn, and you're just met with this wealth of information on a web somewhere that you've got to try and find out what it means.
Yeah, I can completely kind of relate to the side of it of the self-education side of it, because that's exactly what I've done, and I continue to educate myself on. And you're absolutely right. As soon as you get that diagnosis, it's okay, what next? And I just remember reaching out to the British Dyslexia Association and all these different things, and just trying to absorb as much knowledge as I could possibly to get this. But I always find, if you went so say for instance you go into so someone then gets diagnosed with ADHD, and it's a new diagnosis, and you're still unaware. I find, I can imagine you then go into, say, a job, you apply for a job, you then say, I have ADHD or dyslexia, and they say, okay, tell me about it. Tell me what you need. Tell me how I can support you. And it's almost, I mean, some companies, don't get me wrong, they're incredible. Sounds like you're with an incredible company, but some companies are still in the early stages of trying to understand. So when they flip that question around and say, what can I do to support? And you're almost going, do I always have to be the person? Would it be nice if just someone, like you said, put your arm around, so to speak, and said, this is what I feel that we can help. And ultimately, people are different and everyone learns differently. I get it. But I don't know if you found that, Becca, is you always feel like you're educating people and you're trying to educate yourself. And it's a fine balance, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I get this one quite a lot. And I reached out to somebody about it this week actually. I get the, everyone's with ADHD, aren't they? Everyone's on the spectrum. And I find myself like, I remember, years ago actually thinking, ADHD, I was brought up to challenge it and think it was naughty boy syndrome. And, and now when people say that, I'm like, I think there's still this complete underestimation about and lack of knowledge and awareness about what it is. And it would be great to walk in somewhere and they say, we know about neurodiversity. We recognise it's very different in people, but actually we've got these things in place, and these tools might help you. So, for example, where I work at the moment, we've got like a mind mapping tool. So I really struggle to get my ideas from either, like, I can do them on a whiteboard, I can draw them out, I can speak about them for ages, but ask me to put that in a PowerPoint and I can sit there and I could sit there for a whole day sometimes. But we have like a really good tool that it's like in mind maps. It's because I love mind maps. You put it in and it pulls it all into a PowerPoint for you, and things like that. But that I found that out through somebody because I was talking about neurodiversity. But yeah, it'd be great to walk in somewhere and they have, they're aware of it. Even I'm finding now through schools, a lot of the Senkos and the ADHD diagnosis in children focuses mainly on the hyperactivity side, and questions in boys would be really obvious. But in girls, because ADHD looks quite different and we're sometimes quite reserved, and actually we procrastinate, and then last minute we're really good at still getting our work done. The questions in the diagnosis don't kind of look at that, or fidgeting. Boys can present in ways that they're bad behaviour. They're shouting out, they're standing up, they're always on the go. Whereas girls are more fidgeting under the desk, or not maybe confident in kind of speaking. They're doodling under here or something. And there's still that education, even within schools, about the differences of ADHD in girls and boys. Girls and women are undiagnosed, go through life being undiagnosed because it's often missed, because it presents in a completely different way.
But it's incredible you mentioned that, Becca. And again, knowing the difference as well, and behaviour as well. If we take a form of neurodiversity, they always think, so take dyslexia, they say you struggle with reading and writing. If they ADHD, or it's something this and something else. But the behaviour element of it is and I don't mean the behaviour as in as people deemed bad behaviour in this sense, but the fidgeting. So if we even came back to say an interview, so to speak, I mean that's quite a tense environment, because you're naturally going to be tested on so many different things, and it's just not a unless you thrive off of interviews, but generally it's quite a tense situation, especially with someone with ADHD, and you go in and then suddenly you're naturally going to be a little bit nervous. So your posture may be this or this, but then if you put ADHD as well as that, you could be sending signals to the person who's interviewing you, thinking, are they hiding something, or is there something wrong? Or, they're trying to make you as relaxed, but sometimes even those situations, I know in the past, they can be quite daunting, can't they?
Yeah, I've got blue tack here.
Got blue tack.
That's my fidget. Yeah, I will always have something to fidget with. It's that, or I don't know, a hairband, something like that. But you're right, and
yeah,
it is that, you know. I think as well, where some people have said, well, it's just a label, just let's embrace people. But you know, society puts so many expectations on people. You know, if you interrupt, you're automatically rude. If you're really direct and blunt, you know, you're automatically rude. If you're fidgeting, you're not paying attention. Actually, sometimes that's either helping, you know, when you're feeling anxious, or to help you focus. You know, and if you are rushing at the last minute, you know, it's because you're lazy, and things like that. They're all things that we as a society create, and actually add even more pressure onto people that, you know, actually do have these hidden disabilities.
yeah.
And so without a label of ADHD, you know, I've had people say, oh, you know, because I'm quite direct sometimes, and sometimes I just come out with it, and I don't always, it hurts me sometimes inside, because I say a message I would never ever intend to hurt somebody. You know, when you say something and I've not thought through how that person's could be receiving that message, I have to work really hard on that, especially in the role I do. You know, sometimes I have to physically bite my tongue and think before I deliver that message. But, you know, yeah, society has these expectations that some of them naturally don't fit with, you know, the neurodiverse population.
You're absolutely right, Becca, and I think we, you know, as humans, I guess our brains, you know, that are kind of wired to find, you know, as soon as there's a default in the sense, I use the terminology default in the sense of maybe something different or out of the norm. What is norm anyway? But we won't go into that. But it is, they kind of hone in on these things, and it could be, you know, like I said, the way that you know, I always found I didn't realize I did it, but my behavior around, so say when I was working with you know, the companies that we were doing, and I was working in the office, and whenever I would take a call, I would have to stand up, and no matter who it was, you know, thank goodness for mobile phones and rather than kind of wired phones, but I would literally have to stand up, and I would pace up and down the office, and I would just talk. And I can imagine other people looking at thinking, oh, you know, walking around like a peacock, kind of on the phone, showing off, or, you know, and I realized looking back on it that I was interrupting people's work because someone's just sort of walking back and I'm, you know, being on the phone. But it was very difficult for me to just sit and take that phone call. So it was sort of a coping mechanism for me. But then when I look back on it, I think, oh, how did it affect everyone else? And I was fortunate, I guess people knew about my dyslexia and my ADHD, but then you still think, well, I don't know, you know, is it acceptable to do this? So it is that would be out the norm. If someone said you've got a job where you have to answer the phone and every now and again you just walk straight outside and answer the phone and come back in, people would start thinking, oh, are they taking private phone calls? Are they doing this? What are they doing? So it is, isn't it? So having that conversation and finding the best way to kind of work around it.
I find as well, like in my last job, I used to be in an open plan office, and I'm part deaf in both ears anyway, so I do struggle with a lot of background noise. But another thing of ADHD is having kind of sensory overload. So I grew up thinking, oh, you know, I just get overwhelmed by this noise. When actually, I think now it's probably ADHD. But in an open plan office, I could struggle, you know, to try and focus on my work was really difficult. But then if I did have a piece of either really interesting work or a deadline that I knew that I got to meet in 30 minutes, and I was like, oh, hyper focus mode, and I'm involved in that, people would, you know, come around and talk to me, and I would be so focused that I would just be in my work, and so for them, like, there were some comments where people were like, "Oh, is she just rude? Is she, you know, she's just ignoring me?" And one of my friends at work, because he was aware, was like, he would literally throw things at me because I asked him to. And it was like, if I do that, just tell me, you know. And he'd like kind of like, you know, touch my shoulder and be like, "Someone's trying to talk to you," because I was so engrossed in what I was doing. But the perception of that would be, oh, you know, she's rude or she's ignoring me. And
Becca,
yeah, when I used to do those things, I didn't know.
I so get it. The two things you said about the hyper focus, I completely get that, and the sensory overload. So if we touch on the hyper focus, I will literally work non-stop at something, and I'm sure you do as well, as you mentioned, and forget people around me, appointments, anything else that's just priority, because it just really kind of is at that moment. That's kind of everything. And I think I shared a post the other day about my racing mind. My mind's always racing. It's always kind of in this state where I'm kind of always thinking about, this, and doing this and everything else. So it's almost like a hyper-focused state. So it's very difficult to slow that down or, take on all these different tasks. So I can completely get where you're coming from on that, Becca. How do you manage that? I mean, apart from getting things thrown at you and I mean, I've not found I'll take, if I'm working, and I say to kind of like my partner, she's amazing. She'll go kind of almost like a child, kind of like a countdown. When you tell a child, you say, "Oh, we're leaving in 10." We're doing this. Those sort of things kind of help me, because then I can kind of think to myself, there's an ending in sight. Otherwise, I'll just continue working. So that kind of thing kind of works around. It doesn't always stop me to put the tools down and walk off. But have you found any kind of coping mechanisms, Becca?
If I'm in hyper focus, I try and embrace it because it means I can get stuff done.
Yeah.
And sometimes that might mean, I am a great believer in working sustainable hours, and I need to have a break from screens. I need to go outdoors, things like that. But if I have those moments where I'm involved in something and it's really interesting me, then sometimes I just need to stay there and can get that thing done, or if I do work really well with deadlines. So now I'm better at setting expectations that, if you want to have a draft document from me on a Wednesday, but you've given me a deadline of Friday, tell me that you want it by Wednesday. Don't ask to see a draft, because you're not going to get it. Yeah. And it's not that I'm lazy at all, it's just that I just tend to procrastinate, or I'll leave it, and then I'll just work really well. So I do work better under pressure, but sometimes that's not a good thing.
I think that's it, Becca, because it's difficult, isn't it? In our minds, we think, well, actually, if I'm hyper focusing on that task, I can get it nailed in no time at all. So don't give me these extra 2 days and 3 days. But then sometimes something else could be going on, and you're thinking, well, actually, I can't hyper focus, and then it's a whole kind of different world.
Overwhelm and stress. Yeah,
massively. Yeah. Becca, I want to come on. You mentioned about outdoors, and I saw that incredible picture that you posted, where you're basically just sat under a waterfall, which kind of was just incredible. So is that kind of, I know you do like you mentioned, kind of nature and those kind of things. So nature plays a big part. Does that help with your kind of relaxation and kind of does nature kind of help with you to kind of close off the electrical world to moving into the nature?
Yes, massively. I got into I did part-time gym instructing as well, fitness instructing, and I'm very active, always have been, but getting outdoors or doing some form of exercise is so important to me, and to help me manage ADHD as well. And I also saw that, and there were some really good studies on this, about a school in the north of England somewhere that brought in children exercising at the beginning of the day, and how that helped in their Senko setting. And yeah, I noticed that in my son as well, but I have to, outdoors is important, cold water therapy. I'm known as Becca the TikToker, and Becca the person that sits in rivers and waterfalls. So.
I mentioned, there's something that, that cold water therapy, I mean, is meant to be, completely exhilarating, and some would deem it as kind of, craziness in the nicest possible way, but I can imagine it really, I mean, if you want to kind of get back to nature and absorb, then I can imagine that's incredible.
Yeah, that is definitely the one thing, even after a really stressful day, if I'm feeling a little bit worn out or tired, or like you say, racing thoughts, I can go and sit in that waterfall, and yes, it's really cold, but I can come out of there and I feel amazing, and it's calmed my mind a bit. I just feel a lot more, I'd say, myself, I feel it's just get some of that stress out.
No, absolutely. And you're an avid hiker as well, aren't you?
Yes, yeah.
So I got a couple of few notes on here. So you did the Yorkshire Three Peaks, or so you after was it after a 22-mile hike you then decided to do the Yorkshire Three Peaks? Is that correct, or did I read that?
I did a 22-mile hike, and I had signed up for the Yorkshire Three Peaks, and I was not going to go ahead with it, and doubted, as ADHD do a lot, doubted my ability to do it. And I did nearly drop out, but then I sort of refocused my mind and thought, no, I'm going to give it a go. And yeah, so I did the Yorkshire Three Peaks, and tomorrow I'm doing a 26-mile walk as well.
Yes. Yes, you are. So you're doing them, and you're doing this in and you're raising money for this as well for cancer. So where are you going to be? Is that hike tomorrow, Becca?
It's called a mighty hike, but it's not really. I think it's around like the Thames way. I've not even, this is just typical me. I sign up for things. I've not even looked at the route. I just thought, that sounds good. Yeah, impulsivity is part of ADHD. I'll sign up for that.
It is, absolutely. And you think, what, an airplane jump? Yeah, I'll sign up for that. What? I signed up for this. So you're doing this. So you said it's like a mega hike or
I think they call him mighty hikes.
Mighty hike. So what I'll do with this, Becca, is I've got the details up here, and I will share this out on all of the comments and all of the notes that we go out. But guys, this is the Just Giving fundraiser page, and it will be, like I said, attached to all the links. But if you can help, I love the fact, Becca, when you said if you normally buy me a coffee or something, then please, instead of a coffee, donate. I think that was a great way of getting people to kind of help and support you on this. And it's, like I said, it's for an incredible cause and someone very close to you as well. So I do wish you the very, very best. So what kind of preparation goes into this? Because obviously it's the physical, don't get me wrong, but obviously the mindset as well. What does that kind of look like?
For tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Oh my God, I've not packed anything and I'm going in a few hours' time. I think I'm very resilient. I have been through a lot of ups and downs in life, but I do believe, that they help. They're awful and traumatic, but they help you. But I'm very resilient. So I think I just, I do tend to commit to something and be able to stay committed to it, unless it's like a really long-term goal. But I do, if I think, no, I'm going to do it, then I'm going to stick to it. So I
think when you're thrusted into some, I say thrusted in because you volunteered to do it, but it's almost like you said, when it comes around, it's kind of that kind of confidence in your head, thinking whatever it is, I'll face it, and I'll some way or another I'll be able to to obviously be able to to challenge that and welcome it on board. I did the Welsh Three Peaks a few years ago, and we raised some money for the giraffe appeal in the Wildlife Project, which is attached to the Bristol Zoo in Bristol. So they were building this amazing kind of giraffe enclosure, and I guess at the time I thought I play football a little bit. I go to the gym. I'm absolutely fine. I don't need to train. And wow, when you're going from, one and then getting to a coach, trying to drive. I mean, the weather was horrific. I mean, it was absolutely just hell, kind of, hailstorms and everything. But that mindset, looking back on it, I really do feel that I should have trained a little bit more on the legs, because when you're halfway up Snowdon and there's, the cramp sets in, it's just the pain is not good. Yeah. But it was enjoyable.
I think because I enjoy fitness anyway, and I have to do exercise to help me mentally, mentally. I think I'm quite used to, so I don't really have goals in terms of, I want to get to lift. Well, I was saying that I do have goals, some goals in the gym, but because I do that as a routine thing, I kind of probably like with the 3 peaks, I was like, right, I know I can do it. I need to tell myself I can do it, and I need to change my training plan to help me get there in the next few weeks. And that's what I did. And I was like, just flipped that negativity around in my own head and thought, what's the worst thing I can do? I can give it a go and not make it. But, that's not really even bad either. I think I'll kick myself more if I don't have a go. So I think, generally, because I train quite a bit anyway, I don't necessarily think of the physical side maybe as much as I probably should sometimes.
No, that's good. If you're continuously active in that aspect, then and like I said, it is a mental battle as well as the physical side of it. But it sounds like you're kind of heavily driven in lots of aspects of your life. So I'm sure you'll be absolutely fine climbing the mega hike or the whatever hike it is that they've deemed the phrasing of it is for an amazing cause. So do you have any more challenges after that, Becca, or you don't have to announce if you do? Or is it something that pops up?
No, I haven't. I mean, like, I've done quite a lot for charity since last year. I went sober for a whole year and raised money for AdFam, and then I've done a few bits this year raising money for different charities. I haven't got anything more planned. I have lots of like little mini adventures I do, but I'm sure there will be something there.
I'm sure there will. Becca, I just want to, before we kind of wrap up as well, I saw one of your posts and I thought it was incredible as well for awareness, and it was around kind of masks. If you don't mind me you mentioning that, and I found, I think it was a TikTok that you did, and then you shared it on LinkedIn. So I would advise anyone to please check out Becca's LinkedIn. There are some incredible not incredible content, but incredible posts as well, and it was really it kind of touched a point, because I with my mum who is currently having chemotherapy for cancer as well, and her hearing is as well. And I found it very difficult over the past kind of year and a half with, obviously we have to have the mask sheltered, completely understand, Becca, sharing your story as well. But it was incredibly difficult to have that. And to have to wear that mask. So I completely understand. And I thought the video that you did was incredible. Have you experienced a lot of kind of stories around that, Becca, or you think is that hard to do it, or was it?
I think, again, there's this general lack of awareness of those hidden disabilities. And, so for some people that wear hearing aids, they physically struggle to put a mask on because it really interferes with your hearing aids. And so some people can't wear a mask. But, one example is I sort of said to somebody, I can't, I'm part deaf in both ears. And she said, well, why don't you get a mask with, a bit of plastic? And I said, how's that going to help me? I said, I need to lip read you. And I really struggle with the face masks, and obviously the social distancing, add a barrier in between it. It's a real challenge, and I think it just is generally, there are a lot of hidden disabilities, and people, unless and even if you do know people that have got those hidden disabilities, you can still kind of become a bit immune to it, and it is about being aware of those and being aware that what you see on the face of things isn't always what is happening inside for somebody, or their ears aren't always working, their head might not be in a great place, things like that. So I think there's a lot of people that are very quick to, especially being part deaf, people that will sort of not like to repeat themselves, or they even sort of say, are you deaf? And well, actually I am. And actually it's just being, taking that time every day to be a little bit more aware of outside of yourself and thinking about, other people before you sometimes.
Absolutely. And I couldn't put it better myself, Becca. And you're absolutely right. And it is, if we take that, we take neurodiversity, we take so many different elements. It is just kind of trying to understand and trying to do away with that kind of stigma of just naturally, assuming, well, that's why, or that's why they do this, or do I have to repeat myself, and all these kind of comments. And it does, because you must hear, I hear, I was in a coffee shop a couple of days ago, and there was, banter going on and people were joking or something, and I heard someone shout, oh, what are you, dyslexic? And then for the next sort of 6-7 minutes there was this kind of, every joke you can kind of it wasn't aimed at me in any way, shape, or form, but it was kind of just a general, conversation, like, and it was almost, someone was saying a joke and then someone else, and then it was just, like it was a common kind of, people were kind of having a laugh and a joke at it. But then I was kind of sat there and I was thinking to myself, well, if you actually understood dyslexia, so to speak, or looked into it a little bit, I'm not saying, don't mention it or anything else like this, but generally it is deemed as something to kind of just, it's just a laugh, it's a joke, or you'll get over it, or you'll grow out of it. And I guess that's where we're educating society to start. Just imagine how powerful it would be if just each person just had a little bit of knowledge around ADHD or a little bit around dyslexia, or just and how they could then maybe have a conversation with someone, maybe help someone with that. That would be incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, obviously you can get the lanyards to say that you've got a hidden disability. I have mixed feelings about that because, for example, I'm comfortable now talking about my hearing, but that took me a long time. And actually, I spent years trying to hide my hearing aids, years trying to pretend that, I wasn't deaf. I was so embarrassed about them. And, to have something around my neck to say, hang on a minute, I'm different. And actually, I need you to treat me differently is sometimes I don't know if that doesn't sit right with me. I think there needs to be we need to treat people and meet them at their level and help people and give people the access to the services they need and take people on face value. Sometimes there will always be people out there who take advantage, unfortunately, but I think they're few and far between. And like I say, right at the beginning of when that child's born into this world, what can we as people do differently, and what can our society do differently? The policies, the processes we make, how can we challenge some of that to actually embrace diversity from a young age?
Could not agree with you more, Becca. And I've seen, like I said, some of the content that you put up, and I thoroughly agree wholeheartedly. Where you're coming from this, Becca. We're coming up to the end of the time. It's been absolutely incredible having you on this. How can people connect with you if they want to connect? And like I said, I will put the fundraiser link as well out to all my connections as well to help with that. But if people want to connect with you, how can they do that, Becca?
Thank you very much. Yeah, they're willing, happy for anyone to connect with me on LinkedIn, drop me a message. I always like to help out in terms of educating, or if there's anything, kids are going through and parents are going through especially, and they want to know more on, I'm happy to help and kind of give my support or my advice and my experiences. Wonderful.
Becca, thank you so much indeed. Have an incredible rest of the day. Best of luck. I won't say best of luck. Enjoy the hike. You're doing it for an incredible cause, and I'm sure there'll be so many people supporting you on that one. And I will catch up with you very soon. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Becca. Cheers. So guys, that was Becca. I hope you enjoyed that just as much as I did. She's doing absolutely incredible work, raising more awareness around ADHD. She's doing phenomenal stuff as well, raising money for the cancer charity, Macmillan. So please, if you can support her on that, that would be fantastic. Guys, I will be back next Friday for another Neurodiversity Stories with another incredible guest. Hope you have an amazing rest of the Friday and a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.